Hey guys, welcome back. It's episode 2 of Standing on Business. I'm here with my good friend John Ryan. John, tell us a little bit about yourself, your position, your business, and let's get chatting.
Absolutely. Hello, Ben. It's great to be here today. This studio is super cool, and I love an opportunity to share stories and talk about what's going on in business. I'm a financial advisor. I really think of myself more as a professional optimizer. My position is I really help people optimize their life, and what I stand for is freedom. I got to make some really cool choices in life. Super fortunate. I grew up little dairy farm out in the country, worked in manufacturing for a long time. Chose to get into finance because I fell in love with the idea that the American dream is still alive and well. Growing up a farm kid and seeing how my parents didn't have a plan, and really, they got away with it because my father worked his entire life. I wanted to change that narrative for my family. And so it's a long story, and I'd love to share some more details with you, but that's kind of the intro. Financial planning, professional optimizer, John Ryan. That's the story here.
Awesome, awesome. Tell us a little bit about your background. So you grew up on a dairy farm. Kind of
Yeah.
what got you into the financial field? I know you have a little bit of background. You run shop class too. So tell us a little bit more
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Named it shop class. So, the way I grew up was so old fashioned. Little dairy farm outside of Cazenovia, New York, out in Erieville on Hardscrabble Road. And it was as if I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s. That's the level of technology we had. Big family, seventh out of eight kids, small town America. It was just really for me a perfect idyllic way to grow up, right? So I've got that kind of a Norman Rockwell postcard beginning,
Yep.
and high school was good to me. I was a shop kid. Excelled with using my hands, and so that led to a career in manufacturing. Similar thing. It was a really, really great opportunity. I got to grow with a company, grow with technology, through the 90s and into the 2000s. And I fell in love with the idea of finance by reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I fell in love with Dave Ramsey's philosophies eventually. And so that was my entry point into finance, was the absolute basic level fundamentals, clawing your way out of debt and, making kind of something out of nothing, really something less than zero, get to zero, and then build. And so I've been fascinated with that process for a very, very long time. And I love that you brought up shop class. I named the way I teach, the way I coach, the way I lead people for that hands on, old fashioned, very simple, practical approach. So thank you for throwing that in there. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So financial planning, sometimes people can get the idea that I'm just kind of living paycheck to paycheck. People need to have a lot of money to be a financial planner, or to think about their wealth or think about their future. They need to have a decent amount, or be balling out big.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
what what could you tell someone that kind of has that misnomer or misconception about financial planning?
That is so right. I always joke that people tend to wait too long to start planning. Like you said, they think they've got to have a lot of money up front to be able to do something. And that's just not true. Really, the idea of managing whatever you have wisely, the idea of having a plan right from the start and executing to it, even when you don't have very much money, makes a tremendous difference. Really, it makes all the difference. And that's a core of what I teach in shop class. I do love to work with people that have money and want to grow it, but I also love to work with people that don't. They've got the work ethic. They've got they're scrappy and they're willing to hustle and they're willing to do some things and maybe even sacrifice a little bit to get there. But yeah, you don't need to have money to make money. I mean, that's a fun thing to say in America, but if you're willing to work and you've got the fundamentals, which is a lot of what I teach, you can still really do well in the world, in the economy as it is today.
What would you say is the kind of the current state of affairs of kind of the economy and business in general here in Central New York, Onondaga County?
Ooh, we are blessed here. I've lived in Central New York my whole life. I'm a Madison County guy, but I've worked in Onondaga County a lot. Love the vibe in Syracuse. There's so much happening. Central New York has had, a great university and college scene for a long time. The medical community is strong. And everybody knows about Micron coming to town, right? And so I worked in manufacturing for a long time. There's a core of manufacturing talent, a core of manufacturing activity in Central New York that is really strong, really good. I think the mood and the vibe here is almost underrated. I think Syracuse sometimes has a little bit of a, I call it an Eeyore
Mm,
mentality, the kind of a little doom dee doom.
yeah.
We don't think we're awesome and amazing as much as we really are. This is a beautiful place. I think we're actually headed towards more of a whole boy. I was gonna curse there. Holy spit! Careful what you wished for moment
Hmm.
as we progress through the next 3, 5, out 10 years. I think this area is amazing and is on an upswing. In the big picture, I think things are wild and crazy. I think, politics has never been more mixed with the business community. I don't know that that's not a good thing
Yeah.
necessarily. The political flavor of the times that we live in, the zeitgeist, as one of my friends likes to say, is hard to describe, and it's hard to um, be prosperous and think that it's going well for a lot of people, right? It's challenging. And the crazy part is, those that have and know what to do seem to be able to grow it and keep going. And really, right now, wealthy people spending money is a huge driver of the economy. But yeah, it's wild. I hope I answered your question there.
Absolutely. I would say what would, or I mean, my question follow up with that would be, what do you think is important to, as a, maybe as an entrepreneur or as a small business owner right now to kind of lock into or to, kind of pay attention to in these next 5 to 10 years as we see the incoming micron development as well as the kind of the,
Yeah.
you could just kind of feel this kind of booming nature of
Yeah.
Syracuse right now
Yeah.
of things growing and big getting
Um,
big.
That's a great question, and it's such a big subject. I'm like picturing a Rubik's cube, right? It's like kind of, you need to solve all the sides at once, right? Have you ever played around with a Rubik's cube?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you just solve one side and then you try to solve others, it messes it up, right? You have to do all of them to get it right, and it. We live in times that are challenging like that. You kind of have to be on top of multiple things to be prosperous and to be in front of that business that's moving and growing and morphing. But it's good because it's still fundamental, right? It's what we're doing today. Get your eyeball to eyeball skills polished up, right? Be good at the people side of things. Everybody, A and I, AI, those two letters are
Yeah.
so prominent right now, but human to human skills are still huge. Fundamentals, right? Blue collar, hands on, skilled trades and skilled business is still huge, right? People that can build things, fix things, make something happen. That's still, I think that's always going to be huge. And I think it's a pendulum swing as that comes back into focus, as schools, as, the education system kind of has a recalibration. It's been moving for a long time. They've been, when I graduated high school, shop class was still a big deal, and it was starting to die. Like I went to a Central Tech. I went to night school here in Syracuse for my apprenticeship, and that place had apprentices from lots of the well-known companies in the area. Carrier was still big. Things like that died, and it's all making a comeback. But we've got to overcome the fact that we lost some time. There was more than a decade that we didn't focus on those things. High schools were, focused completely on college, college, college. And so again, circling back to your question, for the small businesses, for the entrepreneurs, and for the workers, fundamental skills, hands-on things, and then the human to human, know how to talk to someone and how to be of service. It's a little bit it's a overused thing, but it's so true. It's overused because it's so true. You got to be able to add value to something, add value to somebody. And so, marketing and communication skills, everything's so competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Today's day and age, you have to be able to add value to someone's
Abs-
existence, add value to their
yes.
business, their systems, whatever that might be.
Yep.
Otherwise, what's the point of hiring you? What's the point of
Yeah.
working with
Yeah.
somebody? So,
Yep.
what kind of advice could you give someone from a financial perspective today, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, that might think, I'm just trying to, basically cover my expenses, make sure my employees are paid up, but really I'm not thinking about the grand scheme of the financial picture, my future, retirement, etc. Because maybe they just don't value that at right now, or maybe they feel like it's not the right time for it, something like that. What kind of advice could you give
So,
someone
in
like
other
that?
words, you're saying maybe a business that can't focus on thinking about retirement right now?
Yeah,
Someone, yeah. So, fundamentals really matter. You said it. You said they're trying to cover their expenses, pay their employees, and grow, right? You nailed it. The whole idea of adding a lot of value, keeping your customers, super high level communication, delivering for your customer, and then being able to, if you can cover your bills and then plow some profit back into growth. Plow, I mean, it's fundamental stuff here. I know I'm nothing earth shattering,
hmm,
but being able to build your brand, being able to build your customer base with, do cool things so that your customers feel that bond and that special relationship with you. That's huge. Deliver on the skills that you provide. It's about fundamentals. And I think what people's expectations now are, they this is not a bad thing, right? It's a double-edged sword, but Americans expect a great experience. People expect a great customer service. Their expectations are really high, and yet meeting those is not that hard. You do have to go that extra mile, right? And so I totally get it. Small business, you're not packing away money for retirement yet, right? You need to just keep funneling profit back into the growth of the business. And now retaining employees is a huge thing.
yeah,
It's such a wild job market out there right now. The headlines scream, layoffs. Big tech is laying people off. Things are, AI is taking away the entry level white collar, and those things are all to some extent true. And at the same time, relationships are more valuable than ever, right? You and I sitting here eyeball to eyeball and talking, having a conversation, that's become everything. And so an elevated experience, when people feel really good, when people feel like there's a buzz around you and what you bring to them, that means a lot. So yeah, again, I hope I answered the question.
yeah.
It's a big thing to ask, but yeah, for businesses, delivering value, great communication, and elevated experience for the customer, um, somehow keeping your employees engaged so they feel the same. So easy, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's a
What
challenge.
What do you think about the notion? I hear this kind of all the time. Or you watch, podcasts online, or you see clips.
Yep.
People say, you yourself as a CEO or yourself as a business owner should prioritize yourself first. Prioritize you yourself as a business owner in terms of taking a salary, in terms of making sure that you're set up, making sure that you have, the proper benefits, etc. I'm more on the school of thought where I think that there needs to be kind of a healthy balance, right? Where at a certain point, you as a business owner, the buck kind of stops with you, and you have to take care of your employees. You have to take care of, prioritizing that. Maybe right now we're not doing so great in terms of our, our monthly revenue, etc. But we still have to make sure that our people are getting paid. We have to make sure that
Yeah.
bills and expenses. Where do you kind of see that, I guess, that kind of pendulum, or kind of that scale of, prioritizing yourself as a business owner, and then also at the same time making sure to take care of your employees?
It's a pendulum, and a balance is a great way to start that question, Ben. Um, the one of the old success philosophies is picture yourself in the airplane, right? When those masks drop, it tells you to put the mask on yourself first, right? You can't save anybody else if you can't breathe. My wife is a nurse, and she has told me that at times, like, if the patient can't breathe, nothing else matters,
Yeah.
right? So that's you. Right, you got to take care of yourself first, and it's first by about a split second, right? So take care of yourself first, make sure you're healthy and that the business is healthy, and then a split second later. I think the one of the biggest key things is you're looking for that employee, that person that's with you that feels like an owner up front, right? You're the captain. You are the one that created the opportunity, but you need that person that's going to come on board and you're going to treat them really well. It's like employee one. If you can get that person sold out just like you, and really it's about ownership, it's about giving a little bit of equity. Ownership into the enterprise changes everything. I think that's the unlock. When you pay a salary to someone, they still don't feel like an owner, right? No matter what you do. I was with a company that for a long time was family, family, family. And nothing against, companies do what they have to do to survive, but you can very quickly figure out it's not a family,
Mm.
right? And so, small business, when you are, you get that mask on yourself first, take care of yourself, get the business healthy, get it up and running. Find that core person that you can bring in and pay them reasonably, but they know it. They know they're going to have to go all out with you to make the thing work. Give them some equity. Find a way to actually make them a part owner. That, I think, is the unlock. I think that's the formula. Now, again, easier done than me saying it.
Yeah.
But that's where I think that pendulum is. And again, it's about a half a second split. You first, employee second, but it's 1-2.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. What I guess, do you have any kind of stories or kind of background, any kind of specific instances from your experience that you can kind of um, share with us? A kind of a business situation, or kind of an experience where you like you said, it's not a family environment, where the management really doesn't care too much about me, and this is where I need to kind of, I guess, rethink, or restructure the way I'm kind of putting my effort in as an employee here.
Yeah, yeah. I'll share this story of product being amazing, product being hot and in demand versus product becoming commodity, right? So no matter what the business is, the dairy farm that I grew up on was profitable in the late 70s, into the very early 80s. The price of milk versus the cost of producing it was favorable. My grandfather and my dad, it was profitable. Very quickly that changed, right? Milk is a commodity, right? When you produce it, it's out on the open market, they pay market rate, and it's not a lot. You've got to produce it really, really inexpensively to make money. I worked in manufacturing, and really 3 iterations of the company, the product was premium, profitable, and it made everything go, right? So the technology spun up and they were in front of the trend, profitable, high volume, business is growing, things are going great. And at some point, when that's not the case, and we live in an ultra competitive world, right? My manufacturing background started when most of the perception, at least, of things coming from China was junk,
Yeah.
right? Nothing great. And in that time, the pendulum swung, that the tipping point, if you will, was hit where China can produce spectacular results. The product quality, the technology, everything they do. So it tipped the balance where something that was once a premium product, nice margin and high volume, becomes a commodity. You're competing with that
Hmm.
overseas, and production in Mexico, all those things. Now the company has no choice. The company isn't profitable anymore, and all of a sudden that's when you figure out it's not a family, that they have to do what they have to do to survive,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I worked for a company in this area that was an amazing company. A nice chunk of it still exists. It's an automation and robotics company now. They do amazing work with technology. It's just smaller, it's just a different animal than it used to be. And so, yeah, I learned those lessons, through, hard knocks experience, that, yeah, your product, like your HR department, your marketing department, your warehouse, everything could be smoking. Every department within the organization could be doing its job, and management is treating everybody really well. But if what they sell, if like you fall behind the trend, and your product isn't, uh, profitable and in demand in the marketplace, or more specifically, someone else can produce it far cheaper than you, due to competition from China, all of a sudden the family, it's a survival situation.
Yeah.
Very quickly. I hope that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah.
super respectful here. I worked with some amazing people over those years, and I want to give them mad respect, because they did what they had to do. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a family.
So
It's a
no,
business.
absolutely. At the end of the day, you want to have those family values. You want to have the loyalty, respect, and honor.
Yeah,
Employer, employee. But at the end of the day, it is a profit creating instrument,
yeah,
and at a certain point when you just your revenues don't match the expenses of having all this overhead and labor, workforce, etc. Sometimes those difficult decisions do need to be made.
yeah.
Um, anything you could give kind of a piece of advice to somebody as a business owner when they have to kind of be thinking about that, maybe they were in a growth phase, everything was going great, maybe now they're in an off season, or maybe like you said, the item or the service that they're selling isn't as hot anymore, they need to restructure, rethink things. What kind of advice could you give somebody in that position where they need to start kind of cutting costs, kind of trimming away the excess, and
Yeah.
what direction or what kind of order of operations do you do that in?
Well, again, I like to think in terms of a best case scenario. What would be the result if we operated, perfectly, and executed with a great, vision towards the future? What would that scenario look like? So look at best case scenario, then look at where we really are, and kind of engineer our way backwards to it. And so if you, certainly emergency revenue, right? Having a nice pile of revenue on hand to weather the storm, it would be number one. Margins can become thin, and you don't have that, or to your point, you're in a down season, or just a project goes sideways, right? Small businesses, if you're operating one or two projects at a time, and one project that was going to be profitable goes bad, right? That can tip things in a bad direction. And so it's really fundamentals. If you can have that emergency revenue available, so that you can survive. And then, from there, it's just, it's the law of the jungle in a way. Pick your projects wisely, have people on board that you can trust, that maybe would help. Maybe they can hold their breath with you a little bit to weather a storm, and be able to pivot. Like, that's one of the greatest things, is if you can take what you do and adapt it to the market conditions, be able to pivot and offer something a little bit different, be able to bring a different flavor to your offering, to the menu, if you will, when things change, because they inevitably do. Be prepared. If something's going really well, if something's wildly profitable, know that someone's going to copy you, right? Know that someone's going to say, hey man, if you can do that and make lots of money, I'm going to jump in too. And now you instantly have competition.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. It's just, go into every deal with that mindset that, hey, I got to be careful, but also open and honest in my dealings. And if you can position yourself where, I like to think of it as the Macy's Santa Claus, right? Be kind to your competition, be kind to the marketplace, and people will come back because they love you, right?
Yep.
That's, again, it's hard to do, but in this modern world where everything is on social media, people can snoop up on you and figure out who you are and what you represent so easily. It's almost, you have to play more by the golden rule. I feel like technology has brought out a lot of bad. It's brought out some negativity, and young people especially. I think social media is not so great for teenagers. We're figuring that out, but it also makes it so your reputation can carry you through hard times. If your customers and the market loves you, make sure that the world knows about it.
Yeah,
Hope
absolutely.
hope that, again, I hope I answered your
No,
question there. I
absolutely,
rambled.
absolutely. Yeah. I think social media in the greatest scheme of what it's done, yes, there's some negatives to it in terms of people tend to not live in reality sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
You see all these, how to become a millionaire and, all these types of things that aren't really rooted in reality.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah,
that, people rent exotic cars and, guys that just work hard and look at all the things that I got. In reality, it's just a farce.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And a lot of that kind of comparison culture, you could say, has kind of ruined a lot of people's joy, I'll say.
oh yeah, yeah.
But
Comparison is the thief of joy, I've
yeah,
heard it said.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And a lot of times I think people, they see, oh, this person's doing so great online, and exactly kind of how you said earlier. Someone sees, oh, that they're doing this business, I gotta get into, I gotta
yeah,
get on that as well.
yeah,
I think that that's the negative side. I think on the positive side, social media has kind of allowed for that instant feedback. If
yeah,
you have a product or you have a service or something that didn't go well, some sort of product launch or something that really didn't sit well with your target consumer, your target market, they'll let you know very quickly. But at the same time, the flip time, if you're doing something that people love, you'll hear that as well very quickly. People are, it's that notion of being a keyboard warrior.
yeah,
It's very
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah,
easier
yeah.
nowadays to just be a keyboard warrior.
Keyboard courage is a
Yeah,
big deal.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and the stuff that you would maybe not say, way back when it'd be a little bit harder, to confront someone or say, XYZ. And again, everything is kind of, there's two sides to the coin all the
Yeah,
time, because
absolutely, Ben.
sometimes that keyboard courage kind of comes out and people kind of tend to twist the truth from what it really is, but sometimes it's also good,
Yeah,
because it'll
you're absolutely
enables
right.
people to say things that maybe they wouldn't say before.
Yeah, yeah.
Back on that idea of being able to pivot, anything from your background, from your story, that you could kind of give us a kernel of knowledge of the being able to pivot, being able to be quick, to kind of think on your feet.
Yeah, yeah. Pivoting and reinventing yourself has become my adult currency.
Okay.
From a farm kid to manufacturing. Very hands on. There was a time when I was carrying the tools around the shop and fixing things, and of course, you probably can pick up the fact that I like to talk. Right, communication has always been a favorite for me. So with that skill, I've been able to pivot. Um, but it's a big deal to go from a job that you've been showing up to for decades to an entrepreneurial activity, and something that is like, you get paid when you make a deal, you get paid when you make something happen. um, One of the most important things is your financial fundamentals and stability at that point, right? If you've got little to no debt, maybe just a mortgage, and you've got an emergency fund, you've got some money set aside, and you're able to go and network and talk with a lot of people and make an educated choice, like, that's the ultimate. I think in the world we live in today, I was the exception. There was a handful of people that worked for the same company for 15, 20, 25 years. My brother is still there 30 years. That's very rare. Most people these days do move around and they move from job to job. And that's, but to completely go from job to business owner, or from, to pivot into marketing or whatever it is, the ability to do that and reinvent yourself, it requires, it's just a really high degree of personal commitment, personal development, and some money. People know that intuitively, that you've got to have your finances square to be able to accomplish certain things, and to, like, do the next level exciting things that people want to do in life. So financial fundamentals really are a huge piece of it. And I'm gonna shamelessly plug shop class here. That's what it's all about, is teaching people how to have their finances squared up, emergency fund in place, investments where you need them to be, risk taken care of, risk, assessed and handled. And then the personal side of it, the who am I? When I look in the mirror, when I ask myself, what do I want to do in 5 years? What do I want to do in 10 years? Who am I becoming? That's where, in this modern world, we have that capability to play those games, because we're so prosperous, because the fundamental needs have been met, right? Most of us have a roof over our head. We know where we're getting our next meal. We've got the clothes and the infrastructure's there. We live in the ultimate time to be alive. Now, that brings danger, risk, and it brings some bad things too. But we just live in a time where being able to square up and reinvent yourself and do the things that really light up your heart and soul are, it's never been this good, this easy to be able to do that. Now, when I say easy, I should have used the word simple, because it's one of the hardest things ever, to pivot, to reinvent, to redirect, and become, you know, the ultimate version of yourself. And that's just it's a iterative process. You just keep doing, you keep getting better. I know I've rambled here a bit, but yeah, that's the ultimate game. Get your finances where they belong, and then conquer yourself and find that thing that you're meant to do, right? Find that business that lights you up, find that profession. Or, sometimes the artist must paint, the musician must sing or play an instrument. It's that. I
Okay,
hope I answered your
you got
question.
to get into what you love.
You
Yeah,
got to get into it. Yeah, yeah.
gotcha. What could you say to someone that's a business owner that's, maybe, let's say, for example, in their 40s and 50s? Um, Retirement is a thing that they should be thinking about, and they've been working for that business, kind of that notion that you shared with me earlier of, your fathers, your grandfathers kind of working in the business their entire life. um, where is that kind of, where would you say that aha moment or that light bulb moment needs to happen, where it's like, I need to start thinking about, I'm not going to be able to work for the rest of my life?
That's
And
that's a great question. Small business can be its own retirement, right? And that's a key thing. Is at some point in the life cycle of your business, if you are in your 50s, you're getting into your 60s, you got to figure out what your business is worth, right? Is it something you can sell and that becomes your retirement, the value of the business? I love the old school process of bringing on an apprentice, right? If you can bring someone into the business that can learn it from you and make an arrangement where they buy it, or and I know I'm being kind of utopian and simplistic here, but those are the ways to think about it. And then reverse engineer if that's not the case, right? If the business is a job that you own and it's not going to have enough value to be sold and become your retirement, now you got to start a traditional retirement, right? You got to start your own uh, simple retirement account. You got to do your IRA. You've got to do, if you can do a little 401k, depending on the size of your business. There's options. You need to invest. And so the big question is, Am I investing in the business because that's where all the value is, and that's where I'm gonna extract that value later in life? Or is this a job that I own, and that's cool because I'm the boss, but I need to invest outside of that business to grow my nest egg and to grow my real estate portfolio or whatever it is that's going to carry you. And I love how you asked about that light bulb moment. Um, it's about being honest with ourselves, you know? Am I at a physical tipping point where this was easy for me physically to do this thing and
Yeah.
it's not anymore, right? Is it, or is it an intellectual profession? Are you offering services, but now it's become mentally draining to do it? So it's a great question, and it's really a case by case thing. But again, I like to take that model of, let's look at the perfect best case scenario utopia. What if I had planned this way? Can I achieve that? Chances are no, right? And then reverse engineer and back your way into what's reality and how do I kind of navigate to getting to some version that works. Um, I actually read this today. There are a lot of businesses in America, small to medium sized businesses that are profitable. Auto repair shops, laundromats. There are just businesses out there, plumbing and heating. They're not super exciting, but they're profitable and they're working. And they need another generation to take them over. People are looking for, people to buy that business and continue it and keep it running. And I think we're at a point where the younger generations are going to figure that out. I think the market does take care of itself, and I think that, really it was a complaint that there's no one to take these businesses. I don't believe that. I believe that young people and the market will figure out that's where I need to be.
Yeah. I like that phrase you used earlier. Instead of being a business owner, it's just a job that you own.
Yeah.
I would say where, or my question would be kind of where is that point where you have to kind of realize, am I truly a business owner? Am I running a business, or is this business kind of running me?
Yeah.
And, is this just, is this a profitable entity? Is this something that's value generating, not only for myself, my clients, paying my bills, but is this something worth something that someone would actually want to pay money for,
Yeah.
or is this just a position that I'm just holding in, and I basically built this mound for myself? You know, I think
Yeah.
that's a very interesting point to kind of
Yeah.
think through and realize sometimes,
Yeah.
because it's just human nature. Sometimes
Yeah.
we like to pride ourselves, especially with LinkedIn culture
Yeah.
nowadays. People
Yeah.
with job titles, and I'm a ceramic technician. What do you do? I scrub toilets. So
Right.
it's a very, um a lot of times people like to give themselves big positions and big roles
Yeah.
and big, inflate their own egos. But sometimes you just have to be real with yourself and realize, I'm not a ceramic specialist. I'm really, at the bottom of the totem pole here.
Yeah.
Not hating on anyone that's a
No,
that's a
exactly.
that's
I
a, in the
love it.
janitorial service or anything like that. But sometimes just being honest, being real with yourself.
Yeah.
Is this a profit, making business? Is this something that's actually generating revenue and value for the people that are involved, the stakeholders, the actual clients, myself, etc. As a business owner, or is this just quite literally a position I've, kind
Yeah.
of
Have I created
created
this?
this, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Um,
made.
One of the most powerful tools in shop class is the mirror. I love to talk with people about being realistic. When you look in the mirror, right? If I look in the mirror, if I see Tom Cruise, I've got to check myself.
Yeah,
If you're realistic about what's in the mirror and you can assess it, and it's fun to have that utopian thing. I love the ceramic specialist, right? That, to take pride in what you do and do the thing you do with love. So you do both. I think, again, that's another modern thing that we have to wrestle with now. It's like the internet and smartphones and artificial intelligence. We're getting to the point where, like, all knowledge is out there. We kind of know everything. We can't lie to ourselves too
yeah,
much longer. I
yeah,
I think we got a ways to go. But my point is, if we can treat the job as if we are a ceramics specialist and clean that toilet well, but also know, okay, I can't do this forever. I can't get on my knees. Next year, I got to figure something out and I've got to, be realistic about, yeah, I just own this job, right? If you clean 10 houses and it makes you really good money and you're happy and you call your own shots, but it's just you. And the second you stop cleaning the houses, the money stops flowing in, you own a job, and that's cool. That's not a bad thing. But I love how you framed the question really well for me. And yeah, you just have to look in that mirror and be honest about it and make a plan. That's the coolest thing ever is just creating a plan, giving yourself enough time. We can't make a plan that instantly changes everything tomorrow, but we can make a plan today that makes us feel good. That's the game.
Yeah.
I want to make a plan that carries me out X number of years, decades, whatever it is. But the plan, I need it to make me feel good now. That's the magic of shop class. I help people feel good about it now. How do I get peace? How do I feel energy if that's what I'm lacking? It's a fun game to go through these exercises with people.
Do you think it's good to have kind of a pessimistic, optimistic, or kind of bullish, bearish kind of outlook on the future? Is it better to kind of think, plan for the worst, hope for the best, or is
Mm,
it better to kind of have that utopian kind of view that everything will go, swimmingly to plan? What
yeah.
as
Ooh.
a business owner, or even just maybe even as an employee in a business, and you're kind of thinking about your future, your plans, is it better to be optimistic and hope for the best, or is it better to kind of kind of plan that everything's gonna hit the crap is gonna hit the fan and it's all gonna go
I
wrong?
love that question. I think you have to be true to who you are. So if you're naturally pessimistic, if you're naturally kind of negative and you think everything's going to go bad, well, I kind of feel bad for you because our current world and the way the media works, it fuels that. And I think you're going to feel terrible. But I think the thing to do is lean into understanding the opposite point of view. So if you are negative by nature, study the best case scenario and understand both until the scales balance and then proceed. Right. I tend to be wildly optimistic. Right. And sometimes I'm wrong. Right. I'm optimistic. Sometimes I've even been accused of having a toxic positivity. Right. I didn't know that existed, but I do now. And so I take that optimism and I study the worst case scenario because it could happen, right? History has proven to us that the worst case scenario can happen. We actually live in, again, I'll say the greatest day ever to be alive is today,
Yeah.
right? It's the only day we have. But this is the exception, right? The world is, if you look at history, chaotic, tyranny, people being bossed around, pushed around, peasants. This whole concept of the American way of life and freedom and ownership of property is it's a relatively young thing. And we did some terrible things to get here. Right, I have to honor my son and my daughter. They're keenly aware of that. Right, the modern day history where we're revealing, some of the terrible things we did to create this current society we live in. So to get back to your question, whichever you tend to be, study the opposite. And if you're in the middle, well, you got twice as much work to do. You got to study both
Yeah.
and understand your tendency and know how to um, use it as motivation, understand how to use it as strategy, right? Preparing for a best case scenario and expecting that that's going to happen is it's pretty naive. So yeah, it's a balancing act of I love to shoot for a utopian ideal, engineer my way back to cope with the reality of human beings and chaotic, uncontrollable circumstances. Those happen. If you are, again, if you're super negative, um, get on top of that. Understand that it is something you can work on, and look around and see how beautiful the world is and find a way to lean in and enjoy that. So I don't know if I've given you a perfectly square answer, but it's both. You have to look at both, make plans, and read a lot. Read a lot. Listen to a lot of podcasts. I think the richness of information that's out there right now to help entrepreneurs, to help people build businesses, make connections, be around smart people. It's a rich environment. It's moments like this. Talk with people.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce.
In terms of business and kind of business ethics, does your kind of perception or kind of outlook and the way you deal with that kind of change, or is it also kind of you kind of have to look at it from both angles of the the best case scenario, worst case scenario, and just to kind of give context, as a business owner, as someone that runs an enterprise, you're dealing with people all the time.
Yep.
You're gonna have great customers, you're gonna have bad customers, you're gonna have people that deal with you honestly, people that deal with you dishonestly. Um, would you use that same line of thinking, or when it comes into the sense of being a business owner, does that kind of you kind of shift your thinking a little bit differently?
Um, I think you apply it equally because it's human beings, right? So the way that I want to treat my customers, the way I want to treat my clients is similar to the way I want to treat my wife and my son and my daughter. Um, I think we live in an age where the accountability, and we talked about this already, that transparency is so it's so profound how easy it is for people to figure out if you are unethical. So easy for people to raise the flag on you if you're not good to deal with. Um, what I have figured out is the space where financial advisors, where coaches, where people that, you know, help other people make their lives better. It's competitive space, right? Anything where there's money to be made, anything where there's, the product is wisdom and ideas, it attracts people. It attracts a competitive spirit. And so I figured that out really quickly. I thought my situation was something really unique that I brought to the marketplace. And I figured out, oh, wow, yeah, stupid. There's a lot of people here. There's a lot of competition for, um, you know, improving other people's lives and for helping people build their wealth and their portfolio. And so what I figured out is the relationship becomes everything. The currency is the connection. The currency is your energy that you bring to the transaction. That when you, again, that's how I love to, if I can make a person, a client, feel loved and better and energized about what they're doing, I can take that to the bank. I can repeat that with the right kind of person, right? I'm not for everybody. Some people will find my positivity annoying, right? There are people that want a different type of coach, a different type of advisor. Um, so yeah, I think every business situation you want to still. I think positive people, people with that sunnier outlook, tend to be the entrepreneurs, right? I think people that are a little more pessimistic and a little more negative tend to. And again, this is nothing against them. We need all types. I love a good negative engineer. Right, I want someone that's engineering a safety system because they can see every bad scenario, and they're engineering things and they're putting the fail safes in. I love engineers. I spend a lot of time with them, but I think it's that thing. I think the positivity and the people that love connection and humans get in and become entrepreneurs. They get in there. It's one of our fun sayings. And the people that are tend to be more analytical, less about that sunny outlook, tend to do the kind of careers and opportunities where they can use those. Again, it's about your mirror.
Yeah,
Look in the mirror and know who you are, know what your strengths are, and play to them. And again, I hope I answered your question. I think that balancing, knowing where you fall on the negativity and positivity scale is a skill.
definitely. I think a lot of times people, um, on the subject of entrepreneurship, I think a lot of times people they that get into that, they think they know what they're getting themselves into a little bit. Sometimes I think true entrepreneurs understand that you are going to be, shoveling crap for a little bit. You are going to be kind of in the trenches,
Yeah.
working through things, and it's not always going to be sunshine and roses, and it's not going to
Right.
always be the best. But the freedom and the ability to take a company, take an enterprise in the direction that you want to take it in, and that excitement, that waking up every day with a new excitement to go in and try something new. You do have to have a little bit of a positive outlook, a
Yeah.
little bit more of a open kind of atmosphere
I think
about
so.
yourself. But at the same time, also it's not out for everybody.
No,
It's
no,
not made for everyone, and not everyone can be the business owner. Not everyone can be the person that's
no.
building, because if everyone was the business owner, if everyone was the entrepreneur, the baller, the mogul, there would be no people to take care of those entry level
Yeah,
positions, to take care of those building block foundations, those employees of those businesses
yeah,
that make a business great, that make that business is built up of.
yeah,
So it's just finding, I guess, finding that balance.
yeah.
You
You're
know,
right. I think you nailed it there. The baller, the people get into business and they jump into entrepreneurship because they expect that that's the result, right? And they don't know that there's a grind and there's a hustle and that there's a longer work day and there's weekends, because getting something started is hard.
yeah,
Getting something up and running. I always joke that it's like, you're trying to start a fire in the rain, in the wind, and it's not that you just get the fire lit and you're good. It's like you got to light that fire every day for a long time until it can sustain itself, right? That's my simple analogy. And I think one of the things that is causing um, some stress and anxiety in the world we live in today is the fact that the cool entry level jobs, the things that people could do right out of college or even right out of high school, just running an office and putting together spreadsheets and reports and, paralegals and things. At least the perception right now is that AI is making those go away. I think it's actually making those jobs a lot easier, and so now you only need one where maybe you needed four. I don't know. There's no across the board simple answer that solves all that, but it is. I mean, we used to have a lot of entry level jobs in factories, right? Those were shipped to China, to Mexico. India is building up, and again, that's great. Americans aren't used to the entire world being a great factory. We
yeah,
we used to be the only great factory. Europe, caught up and they build things very nicely as well. I see some German engineering on your wall. I see must be, I don't know if it was you or the previous someone liked Audis.
yeah. That's me.
All right, all right. But it's just funny that entry level jobs. I mean, Americans don't tend to like them, right? We've graduated a lot of kids out of high school that don't want to do an entry level job, and I think there's just a reckoning that's happening right before our very eyes of that all resolving. And again, I think the market will correct. The market will take care of that. Now, will minimum wage get bumped up again? Who knows? I'm just saying, the government gets in and starts fussing with the market at times. We need that to a certain degree. We need, to control pollution, and there's a lot of good things. I'm not anti-government, but I am pro-market. Let the market figure things out, and young people starting businesses or at least getting involved in small businesses with their hands and with skills, I think is just it's on its way. And kind of going back to the Syracuse buzz, this area is going to grow. We're going to need carpenters, plumbers, electricians. Eventually, we're going to need people to put on clean room gear and go into Micron. I mean, that's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah,
Hiring those technicians and those people to go in and actually work at Micron. After the concrete's poured and the all the wires are connected, that's going to be so wild. And the people to run the systems, it's going to consume so much water. It's going to consume so much energy. Yeah, watch out. It's going to be incredible. Um, My daughter Laura is 18 and she's moving into the medical world as she's studying to be a nurse. I feel like she's made a great choice. My 14-year-old son, um, we got time, right? No emergency, but I'm keenly super interested in watching what unfolds here in central New York and Syracuse, Onondaga, Madison, Oneida County. I mean, just everywhere. It's an amazing story. I'm so happy to be here to be part of it.
What would you, I always like asking this question, what kind of piece of advice would you give someone that's maybe fresh out of school, either high school or college, and is trying to find their niche, that's trying to
Mm,
find their thing, either to be a business owner or to work for someone or to find their, you know, nowadays I find that a lot of people go into college thinking they know what they're going to be
yeah.
wanting to do for the rest of their life. And, sometimes people pivot and change their degree, or, sometimes they go through with the entire process and realize, I wasn't really actually looking forward to doing this, or they're coming out of high school, they have no idea what they want to do with themselves, honestly. What kind of piece of advice would you give someone that's trying to look and find their thing, their
I
niche, and
love that question. I love
their
that.
interest?
Um, All right, so I'm gonna pretend it's my son. Again, Laura, she's got a path, and we're feeling pretty confident she's gonna rock with it. My son, if he didn't know what he wanted to do, didn't know exactly what to do in college, maybe doesn't know if he's gonna go to college, right? You're really wide open and trying to figure it out. This is what I would say. I would say figure out how to keep your expenses extremely low, right? If you're living at home and things are cool and that's, okay to stay there, start saving a little bit of money. Maybe you get a little bit older, you're out of school, you've been out a year or two. Find a group of friends, find some way, the old school thing to rent a house or rent an apartment cheap. It's hard these days. Things are very expensive. I get it. I used to fight that and say, it's just, you got to try harder. Well, it is expensive. So I'd say band together with some like minded people and keep your expenses low. Do not go into debt. And then I would say, find mentorship, find a group, find a club, a technical club. Get involved in a school, whether it's a trade school, what's cooking at OCC, MVCC. There's lots of schools around that are doing certificate programs. Morrisville. I shouldn't be school name dropping here, but I'm basically saying be really careful and intentional and try a bunch of things. Get a job at, don't be afraid of the supermarket or McDonald's. Don't be afraid to work places like, man, I would have worked at Wegmans if I knew, when I was a teenager, instead of milking cows, I might have gone to Wegmans. But the bottom line is stay flexible by staying out of debt. Try a bunch of different things so that and understand that you may not figure it out right away. It's okay to not know. It's okay to just work and kind of get in that rhythm. Get used to having a boss. Get used to like putting together a set of skills. Track what you do, and if you can find an apprenticeship, that's the that's what I would advocate for. Find a place that needs you and wants you and is willing to train you and learn a skill. Learn that skill, let them pay for your schooling, and that's just an amazing avenue. And again, it's you don't have to do the thing forever, right? If you become a carpenter, you don't have to do it for your entire life, but maybe you'll own the company someday. Find a small business that'll take you under its wing. And to your point, you're talking about discovering an entrepreneurship. Um, Talk to people that own small businesses. Just ask a ton of questions. So I guess I'll circle back. Stay out of debt, keep your overhead low, ask a ton of questions, and hang around at clubs, schools, places where there's thinkers, places where there are people that have done something cool and you want to be like them. Um, we could go off in another super tangent and talk about drug use? Are you smoking a lot of weed? Are you drinking? Are you partying? Because those things matter. Young people are, you got to figure that out too. We'll save that for another whole podcast. But that would be my advice. Again, I hope I put it together in a package that made sense. Get around good people. Man, just be around thinkers, and measure who you're friends with. It's super important.
Yeah, I think your community influences you more than you influence your community. In my personal
Yeah,
kind of experience and what I've noticed, a lot of people tend to think that they're, free thinkers and that they're the influencers, but in reality, a lot of times your circle is going to be
yeah,
influencing you.
yeah, totally.
And if you want to be, if you want to be a millionaire, you got to hang out with millionaires. You want to be a business owner, you have to hang out with other business owners.
Boom. Well said. Well said. Exactly. One I could circle back and add another thing. Buy some tools. Right. A kid. We're not talking at this point. It's young adult with a weed eater and a lawnmower. I mean, you could own that job, right? You could go out and do some things, buy some tools and offer to fix up people's back steps, buy some tools and offer to fix, replace a doorknob. In the marketplace today, there's a desperate need for the handyman sized business. Most of the construction businesses have gone baller, as you would say. They've
Yeah.
gone big, right? And they want to build big, profitable houses. And I don't blame them. It's hard to make money on the small stuff. And that's why we need young people to jump in and do it, right? There's a lady in your town that would pay you to hang up a new garden hose this spring, right? There's someone in your town that would pay you to just replace a screen. There's a lot of smalls being ignored because people can't find that level contractor. So I'm a big one on, shop classes about tools. Go buy some tools and learn how to use them, or hang around with someone that has tools.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very, very important topic that you've kind of touched on just now. I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that as businesses get bigger, and it's great when a business grows and
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
employees and you have, bigger, you could say kind of these dimensions, you have a bigger workforce and you can take on and tackle bigger projects,
yep,
but you now are not as nimble as a solo practitioner, as
yeah,
someone that's has low overhead, low cost of doing business, that can take on these smaller jobs that that maybe take them an afternoon, these
yeah,
smaller projects, because their operating expense, their overhead is so low. And I've had this conversation many times with some of my other business owning friends,
yeah,
where you want to grow a business, as a business owner, you want to grow a business, you want to get to the next step where you have more employees and you can take on bigger contracts and bigger projects and accomplish these
yeah,
bigger things.
yeah. The baller.
Those mogul, those baller, deals and ideas.
Yeah,
But then kind of can step back and kind of think, and then I guess then that's a bigger kind of question to ask yourself: am I better off now?
right.
You know,
Yeah,
and I think that's what
yeah,
happens a lot of times as business owners, as agency owners, as coaches, etc. Once you take on more employees, once you have more people and kind of pieces into the
yeah,
puzzle, it's harder to move because now you can kind of imagine, like, to give that kind of illustration of, now you have people on your back, you have
yeah,
more things, you're not as quick and nimble anymore. Now you have even if you wanted to not work this week, or you wanted to take
yeah,
on some more creative project, etc., you can't. You have to be locked in because you have 10,000, 20,000 a month overhead and
yeah,
payroll and all these other things, that whereas before, when you're starting out and it's just you and your costs are down and your expenses
yeah,
are low, and you can just kind of be able to taste things. I want to take that project, I want to try that out. um, then you can kind of look back on it and say, or, is it the right decision, I
yeah.
guess. And I
No,
guess,
there's a business philosophy that says if you're not growing, you're dying, right? Your business has to be growing. And I believe that there is some truth to that. but it doesn't have to get out of control. It doesn't have to become a giant monster. Now, depending on your competition level, I worked in manufacturing. We did a ton of work with automotive, and that's just such a cutthroat. That business will grind you down and kill you if you're not careful. And it's even if you are careful, it can still grind you down and kill you. But the things we're talking about, local business, smaller businesses, contracting, video production, marketing, financial advice and coaching. Yeah, you can scale it in a way that's like humane for all parties. And you don't, I love what you said, and you made me think of like a giant business that has to kill a mammoth every week to eat.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
No amount of squirrels and rabbits is going to feed that hungry monster.
Yeah.
And that can be traumatic. That can be very difficult because at some point the mammoth goes extinct and your business is toast, right? And so, young people picking up where the big businesses have left stuff behind, is it happens in small town America, right? It doesn't get the headlines. That stuff is happening. I'm pointing out trends that I see, and I'm saying like every small town has some contractor that doesn't answer his phone anymore because he doesn't have to, right?
Yeah.
He's got all the business he needs. And if a young person starts to answer their phone, there's two requirements: answer your phone and actually know what you're doing. From that point forward, you'll probably be busy indefinitely, right? And there's a scale. You grow that thing, and now at some point you don't answer your phone anymore. I'm ragging on contractors here a tiny bit, but God bless them. They are the work boots and the hammer and the tool belt of America,
Yeah.
and young people are going to fill that gap. It's not everybody cries the blues that we're not going to have enough plumbers, we're not going to have enough electricians. Yes, we're going to. The market will take care of it. But what I love participating in is the helping grease the wheels, if you will, in between school and the business, right? Businesses are not as well connected to the schools as I think they should be. I talk about this model, and again, it's both utopian and very dystopian at the same time, right? This is are you a sports fan?
Yeah.
What's your team?
Well, it depends on what sport.
All right, great answer. So multiple sports, college or pro?
Mostly pro, I would
Okay.
say.
So I love and I hate at the same time the model that sports has created for us, right? I watch the product on the field, and I'm able to separate the business. I can kind of see the fantasy. I see the uniform. I see Josh Allen and the boys, and I love what they're doing. And at the same time, I know it's a monster, right? The NFL is a multi billion dollar monster, and it's good. I don't actually think they're a bad monster, but they have direct connection with every college in the country, right? Every D1 school, they know everything that's going on. They know who they're planning to draft. So all 32 NFL teams know all there is to know about the players in college, and the colleges know everything there is to know about the high school players. And it works because there's all that money, right? Whether you're a fan of NIL or not, the money flowing down all the way to high school kids, it means that connection is very real. And so they know what's going on. The business community doesn't have that, right? I suppose the big law firms with a direct connection to the famous law schools, they've got it. The hospitals probably know exactly where their next doctors are coming from, right? So the more money there is, the more connection there is between the business entity and the school, and the connection between the graduates and the jobs, right? But we don't have that at the blue collar factory level the way I'd like to see it, right? I see the CEO of Ford, at least in the headlines. There's a lot of clickbait, so I don't know how real this is, but from what I understand, Ford is complaining because they don't have enough mechanics to fill X, Y, and Z positions within, Ford's, maybe it's their dealership network. I don't even know. But the connection can be made. There's no reason we can't have the businesses interface with the schools, know what's going on, and every high school's got a couple kids that would gladly do a hands-on job if the pay was good and the benefits were right and they knew what to do and they had a good mentor and blah blah blah. Right.
Yeah.
So the money is there in sports, and it makes those connections. It all funnels, and it works. It's not perfect for everybody. There's hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of wannabe pros that never make it. But the point is, filling the needs in the marketplace and the schools actually producing the worker that the business entity needs, that can all be accomplished. We can make that happen. And so I'm loving the conversation here in central New York. Syracuse area is doing an amazing job. I will shout out Mackney. I will shout out Syracuse City School District with the STEAM school. There are so many good things happening in central New York in terms of getting students tuned up. OCC, they are doing a direct education program that's geared towards Micron and towards the future. SU is doing cool things. There's so much happening to help um, make those transitions and those job opportunities make sure they're filled by a student that went through a program. It's amazing. And I just love the conversation. I want to be one of the people that's helping it improve, helping those relationships, because that's what it's all about. When you don't have a ton of money, the pro sports can accomplish with money what we will have to accomplish with relationships and conversation.
Absolutely. I think a lot of times students in high school, they just don't know the full breadth of all the
Yeah.
options out there
Yeah.
in terms of careers, in terms of jobs, in terms of what you can do and accomplish, and the compensation you can
Hmm.
receive for some of these positions, that might be labeled, blue collar, and might
Yeah.
be labeled as something that, nobody wants to do, etc. But in terms of pay structure, in terms of, the skills that they're learning, I think a lot of times we are conditioned, and here in the United States, we like to kind of have an idealist kind of look on life, and we
Yeah.
want everyone to have the college experience, and we want
Yeah.
everyone to
Yeah.
kind of go through that phase of life, moving out, going to university, and doing the thing, and partying for 4 years, and all of this, and having the experience. But
Can I party for 4 years? I mean, isn't that part of the program?
well, the thing is, and that's kind of the side, is that people, they want to have this experience, but at what cost?
Yeah. Yeah.
That 4 years, that formative time when between 18 and 22, where
Yeah.
you know your peers could be in lineman school or apprenticeship in plumbing, or whatever that might be, and they're coming out of that with a six-figure job, and meanwhile you partied away, and part of my French pissed away 4 years, and now you're competing with so many other students, and at the same time you've taken on $200,000 worth of debt if
Yeah.
you go to a private
Ooh,
university
yeah.
nowadays.
That's rough.
um and you're not starting at zero, you're starting at like negative 100 now, because you have that debt behind your name. You still kind of don't know what you want to do with life, where you want to be. um
That model is broken.
yeah, it is. I honestly, I truly
That
do think
model's broken,
I,
baby.
there
Yeah.
there's I see a direct correlation with how much more, a lot of times people will talk about how in the 60s or 70s you could go to college and work a service level service job and be able to pay for school, etc.
Yeah.
And the reason that was able to be accomplished is because there just wasn't as much funding, there wasn't as much free capital out there to get loans and all these money
Yeah,
out there
you're
that you
hitting
can
exactly. The
that you
federal student loan program didn't
yeah.
exist back then.
And because there's more money, and this is just the truth of reality too, I mean, we have the greatest medical institution in this country because of insurance, because of how much money is out
Yeah.
there that you can be, and
Yeah.
you can't hit on people for it, you can't hit businesses, medical businesses, etc., for the fact that they want to create money, they want to
They want
create
a profit.
revenue, they
Yeah.
want to have profit at the end of the
Yeah.
day, because they have employees, they have mouths to feed. Now there's a certain level of business ethics where you have to kind of then realize
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
much money is this, is a good amount of money, and at what point are we now kind of gouging prices and kind of
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
it to the
Oh, I
next
love
level.
that.
There's
Yep.
there's that level, and I guess that's also true for even small businesses as well. Kind of trying to find that balance of, all right,
Yeah.
we're charging, but to what, are we fair? Are we, competitive? And at what point is it where, in the case of healthcare, where there is really no competition, this is
Yeah.
the sole supplier of, if you have cancer, you have to go to a,
Yeah.
oncologist. You don't have many, options there. Um, and so kind of going back to what we are kind of talking about, because people are primed and conditioned with, hey, I can go get approved for a student loan, and go, half a million into debt for a degree in, underwater basket weaving, and I still have no idea what I want to do with my life. Now, mind you, if you want to go and you are passionate about, this a specific niche degree, blessings to you, go
Yeah.
for it. But a lot of times I find that people go to school, they have very little to do with actually being passionate or trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, and more just like, this is a period of time where I can go and just do whatever for 4 years, and I'll come back and I'll be at the same position. But in reality, they've kind of set themselves back.
Yeah. I love that you brought it up. There was a school of thought for a very long time that any degree was a benefit, right? You could go to school for travel and tourism, and come out of that with a degree, and it would translate. Businesses would respect the fact that you had a degree, and so it still opened doors for you. And what we have found over the course of these decades is maybe that was true. Maybe there was just any decent degree open some doors, but it's 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 lost. The return on investment has flipped. It's not worth it just to get any old degree. Partying and playing beer pong for 4 years does not translate into a job at the end. The debt comes with you, but the stale beer fades away. And yeah, I think that's a huge. I know it's a huge issue for a lot of Americans. I mean, the Democratic Party made it a thing, in trying to pay back some student loans and give young people some relief. And it got them some votes, and I totally get it. But yeah, that deal's broken. The high schools just promoting college as like that's the way to go, and ignoring the fact that a lot of kids don't want to go or don't know what to do. That whole system is broken and needs to be, we need to revamp things, and we need to be really honest with young people about it. And I appreciate you bringing it up. I've been out of school for over 30 years, and it's still important and very relevant to me. And so to talk with young people about it, and hear you say the words that I've said so many times, is really, you're hitting a sweet spot for me. That's something people need to really get a handle on. Don't make that investment in just partying, thinking that it returns and that it's got an ROI.
Yeah. I think in terms of life, and what I've kind of discovered myself over the last, 5 years of running this, I guess this story or chapter of my life, is it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Because you can go to school, and, give you background on myself. I have a bachelor's in business admin
Mhm.
and a minor in finance. And I went to a state school. I went to SUNY Geneseo, and I'm not going to say that that was a waste.
No, those are good degrees. I
It's
mean,
a good degree to
yeah,
have, but it's things, and I've noticed it's definitely helped me as running in the course of business. But I've come to the understanding that I could have learned those things just by putting my hands into the bowl, you could say, kind of, and just
yep,
and working at it myself,
yeah,
as opposed to, paying someone to do that. Now, if I went to Wharton, if I went to MIT, if I went to, Harvard School of Business, I don't think it's necessarily that they're getting, to a certain degree, a level. I don't think that necessarily they're getting some sort of different information or knowledge there. It's more about the connections, and it's more about the network that you are now a part of, and being a part of, that kind of sets you apart. And that's where I kind of turn it back on business. It's not about what you know. You could be the very best at, a certain thing. You could be the very best financial planner. You could be the very best marketer. You could be the very best thing. But if nobody knows that, and you don't have people in your circle, your corner, to promote you, to kind of build you up, to network you to their kind of their networks as well. People want to be insiders. People want
Yeah,
to
they
feel
do.
like they're in the club, they're
They
in the
do.
inn,
Yeah.
and that's the way that kind of thoughts and
Me
products
too,
and
by the way.
services. Yeah, yeah. Oh
It's
yeah, I
human
knew that.
nature. Yeah.
Something new gets launched, and now
Yeah.
everyone, oh yeah, I heard about that. People want to be in the know. They want to
They
be in
do.
that circle. They want to be an insider.
Yep.
Um, and it's that kind of element, I guess, where you go to school, right, and you get a degree. Someone that comes out with a 4-year degree from a state college, and awesome. If you want to go to state college, very affordable, especially now in the state of New York. You go to a state college, you're coming out not in debt, and it's awesome if you know what you're going for, if you know what your plans, your goals are. But to kind of go into it blind, just to get that experience or get that college experience,
Yeah.
etc. Um, it's better to, in my opinion, than just to go and grow a business, go and become an employee, go and experiment something in that time, keep your costs and overhead low,
Yeah.
and figure it out what it is that kind of gets you up in the morning,
Yeah.
gets you excited about life.
Especially if you can work a job that allows you enough free time to then pursue, side hustle culture has ebbed and flowed and become, it was a moment in time where side hustles rule. Everybody should have a side hustle. And then there's a school of thought like side hustles suck. Side hustles kill your social life, and they just beat you up and just drain the joy out of your life. And it's both, right? If you could have a job as a young person and then you work a side hustle that you're going to develop into your future thing, that's wonderful. But you just have to be super intentional. I think having a plan, a written plan, a decade by decade plan, again, a plug for shop class. I teach people how to think in decades, right? You got to think about tomorrow morning. So tonight before bed, tomorrow morning, and then the bookends. The beginning and ending of each day it's a sacred time that you own, right? The middle of the day, you're typically selling that to someone, right? You got to sleep, you got to eat, you got to do some, but the bookends begin very early in the morning and before you go to bed. Be super intentional with that to tune your mind and to know yourself and to have a vision, create a plan, right? That's super important. But I want to circle back to your point about the college experience versus business. I agree with you, and I want a robust, healthy university and state school system, right? We just got to figure out. I think one of the simplest things we could do to make that system uh, instantly improved would be to pull the plug on the federal student loan program. It, maybe pull the plug is too harsh, but at the very least, make it so we're not just handing out money, giant loans that are going to haunt people for degrees that don't pay back.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't kill it, but to just have that federal student loan money pouring into the university systems where they've got a captive audience that's got it's like turning people loose with credit cards that can just rack the bill up to $200 to $400,000 to go to university without a strong ROI. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I think what's created bloated overcapacity of schools, right? I grew up outside of Cazenovia, New York. I don't know if you know this. Cas College.
Yeah.
Pretty famous, pretty cool
Yeah, my
thing.
uncle went there actually. Yeah,
Beautiful,
doesn't exist anymore.
it's gone, right? The buildings are there. Thankfully, we live in America, and an investor group will turn that into something cool here in the future. But my point is, like, they went out of business in a way. There's a dozens of reasons, but there's an overcapacity situation. We have more liberal arts schools than maybe we need. We're funding kids to go to college with federal money. Let's dial that back. Let's make the schools compete. I mean, they do, and they fight for students, and but it's a bloated system that's utilizing easy federal student loans to subsidize and make it so kids go into debt. it's just there's a lot wrong with it that needs to be cleaned up. And I think again, truth telling and really being open and honest with people, kids at a high school level, and telling them more about the things you now know
Yeah.
would be super beneficial. And again, I'm hoping to, continue to be a voice that helps young people see this stuff because they're smart too. I got to give young people credit. They are smart. They are capable, and letting them live in fantasy land because it's convenient for the lending institutions and it's convenient for the universities to have an endless stream of naive students borrowing money. That's bad.
Yeah. I think there's a certain, I guess, balance, like with all things in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a certain like I think it is good, for someone in that, coming of age formative years to move away for a
Yeah,
time,
for sure.
kind of develop those skills that they need to live on their own, to support themselves. Was it they got used to mommy and daddy taking care of everything, and now they have to kind of think for themselves. I think it's a very important thing.
Yep.
But to what extent? To
Yeah.
what level? If and it is, that you can't blame, you know state systems for having all these degree programs, because they see a need in the market, and they're meeting that need by, expanding programs and creating these, these programs for different, careers, etc. But at what level do we, be realistic and say, hey, maybe you don't need $100,000 debt to learn marketing. Maybe
Right.
go work at a marketing firm. Go experience that for yourself.
Yeah.
Um, Now, mind you, certain things and certain degrees, you want your accountant, you want your lawyer, you want your doctor to know the laws, to know the
100%.
procedures, to know
Yeah.
the knowledge. But there are certain other elements where, like I said, not to knock, business administration, but a certain element where those skills, those, kind of those, aspects of a person that is being taught to you, if you are a solid business person inherently, which I believe some people are just inherent entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Some are made, but I think most are born. I think most are, you come out of, the womb, you come out of, come into life with this kind of tenacity that you want to create something, you want to run something, you want to build something. um, I think a lot of those skills, or those qualities, are formed and shaped in actually doing, not just, behind a book. And that's kind of the two-sided nature of this, where it's what can be taught and what is just what needs to be learned
Yeah.
by practice, by doing.
I'm fascinated by what you said because I can't 100% agree. I love your take on it, that you feel like that you're born with that tenacity, that you're born with some special ingredient that makes you want to build and be an entrepreneur. And maybe, I think that human beings are inherently, um, we're born with a nature, right? We are born with certain traits, characteristics, personality types, and living up to that, honoring that nature as we get older is, it's magical, right? And unfortunately, the way our school system, our parenting, just our society in general, it's not like we're nurturing that from day one for every kid, right? A lot of kids are scrapping and struggling and just scraping by with a family situation that's less than ideal, right?
Hmm.
I'm so blessed. I grew up with two parents, unlimited love, unlimited food, unlimited fresh air.
Yeah,
Just, I
it's a
had
blessing.
all,
Yeah.
yeah, super ultra mega blessings. Um, and so I still was screwing things up in parts of my life, well into my 20s, 30s, into my 40s. I mean, part of my story is conquering my adolescence. I dragged my drug abuse and I'm a instead of a three sport athlete, I was a three drug addict. And so, figuring those things out and figuring out who you were born to be, that's one of life's greatest challenges, one of life's greatest it's the ultimate game, I like to say. And so whether or not we're born to be an entrepreneur or we're born to be more of a worker in a, a job situation, we could have a fun debate on that. I think the most important thing is to have a business community where there's room and opportunity for both, right?
Yeah.
If I want to hire someone that's task oriented and they're going to, the engineer that I spoke of earlier, or the problem solver that's just going to put their headphones on or put their earbuds in or whatever it is they're going to do and just figure out a problem that I can't solve. I'm the front man, right? I'm the talker and the visionary or whatever it is that I think I
Yeah.
am. I want to be able to create an opportunity for the person to do the thing I can't do, don't want to do, or am not good at, whatever that is. And so everything we're saying here today I'm celebrating that Central New York is headed in the right direction on a lot of these fronts: education, business, policy. I just think, again, there's a bad side to everything. I don't want to be toxically optimistic, toxically positive, because there's always a downside, right? There's People are concerned about the wetland that Micron is going to operate, and I guess it costs $3 million to get that last property. Right? Did you hear that one?
Yeah, I saw that.
So, but in any case, it's rare if ever. I don't think it's ever perfect, right? People have this. I'm a romanticizer. Like, I talk about my childhood in a very. I romanticize the heck out of it. But it was amazing, right? I get to do that. It's a privilege. But we romanticize the 50s and 60s. We romanticize America after World War II, and that's good. It was good, just not for everybody. And what we're at a point now where you can't hide from it, right? Everybody wants a seat at the table. Every group, every minority, and that's good. I want everybody to have a seat at the table. I love, I think of Thanksgiving. Everybody around the table gets an equal scoop of whatever it is, and we all say what we're thankful for. But when that's over, we got to go back to work and produce it and earn it and process it and keep it from being poisonous and keep it from poisoning the air. It's a lot. The way
Yeah.
the way business works it's a lot, and it's not perfect. Capitalism is the greatest engine humanity has ever created. It's far from perfect, and who knows where it'll be 500 years from now. But boy, the next decades in Syracuse, New York, Central New York, Onondaga County, Oneida, Madison County, just this whole area and I got to give shout outs to my people out in Rochester and out in Buffalo. I have friends all over the place. It's all swinging up. I believe we live in a really amazing time here in the great Northeast. That's what my dad used to call it. But it's not perfect. And someone somewhere is losing, right?
Yeah.
Someone somewhere is not happy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the reality of life. Not everyone
Yeah.
will win, but I think in terms of the opportunity of this country and the opportunities that we are blessed with having here in the
Yeah.
United States, um, it's unparalleled, it's unmatched. To going any other place.
I salute you.
I
Yeah.
love
It's
America.
me too.
Yeah. I was born here, but my parents immigrated from Ukraine in 1998 actually.
Did not
So
know that.
for me
That's
it's
awesome.
very it hits very close to home because um when you are told about communism, and when you're told about different systems and kind of the effects of living through that and the struggle and the not being able to have even working hard and doing all the right things and still not having the
Yeah.
basic
Oh.
necessities, right? So it's a blessing to be able to build business. It's a blessing to be able to operate and have opportunities, and for even the downsides of the systems and the banks getting involved with loans and student loans and XYZ, and kind of you could see the negative sides of capitalism and the negative sides of everything, where but it's
100%.
still inherently in itself uh, uh, a system where if you work hard, you chip away at it, you come in with the right attitude, 9 times out of 10. Now I understand there is those, that one time out of 10. Sometimes circumstances kind of
Things
line
can go
themselves up.
sideways. Yeah.
Things go sideways, things work
Yep.
against people, and you'd be lying to yourself and kind of disillusioned with reality by saying that it always works out the best for everyone. But by and large, I think that we are, especially here in Central New York, blessed with the ability that you work hard, you do right by people, you will reap those rewards. You will reap those benefits.
That's beautiful, man. You just added a whole new wrinkle and a whole nother big chapter and chunk we could talk about. Did not know that your parents were, directly from Ukraine. I would love to dive into that deeper. Yeah, the American dream. It
It
lives.
is. It
It
is.
lives. It created the ideal. And again, with some downside, with some risk, right? Because
Absolutely.
there's risk involved in anything. I use the word utopia a lot because it's kind of fun. And my wife and I joke about it. She likes those dystopian movies, right? She likes the Hunger Games and
Yeah.
stuff that I think is, nothing against that. Katniss is okay. But there's never been a perfect utopian moment, a perfect utopian society, and I don't anticipate that we'll create one. A very good friend of mine, Jen and I go back and forth. Are we headed more towards dystopia or are we headed more towards utopia? And you can make the case for both. I believe that humanity, we've proven to be pretty resilient. We've proven to be problem solvers, and we've proven to strive more and reach up towards the good more than the bad. We've clawed our way you know, out of the cave, and conquered the woolly mammoth,
Yeah.
and we've done some terrible things and conquered other people, and that's bad. But I love what you said, and so we could really lean into what level of socialism is acceptable, what level of capitalism is mandatory, and how that balances in this modern world. And we haven't really gotten into the impact of technology yet, what that's going to do. I mean, that's silly of me to say that. Technology has shaped so much of our life, really, since the Industrial Revolution. I like to pan way back. I like to start at approximately 1500, when the scientific method and scientific thinking was first born, to where we are now, relative to the Industrial Revolution, relative to colonization of the world by European powers, and then the Industrial Revolution. We're watching the Ken Burns documentary as right now. My wife and I, we just live in such fascinating times, and to be able to see it from a global perspective, but also a very American perspective.
Yeah.
And you have the perspective of parents that how old were they when they left Ukraine?
Early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
They were young adults.
Yeah, young adults.
Oh man, I would love to circle back with you, and talk at length about, really, what we've just covered today has been fascinating, and I want to thank you so much for having me on your podcast, for having this very enlightening time with me. But I think there's another whole mega chapter and subjects we could deep dive together. If you're up for it in the future, I'd love to hit this again. This has been
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. There's a lot more that we can definitely unpack in the grand scheme of business, in the grand scheme of running a business and being an entrepreneur. Our final closing thought here. What's the one piece of advice, one story, one kind of lesson that you've learned in this grand scheme of life, of running a business, of being a business owner, or a father, or any kind of most important tidbit of information that you'd say, if this is the one thing that I would contribute to society, one thing that I would
Oh
contribute to,
man.
someone needs to hear this, what
Thank
would that
you.
be?
Thank you for allowing it to be a story. Um, Ben, for me, the legacy that I am leaving behind, the thing that I want everybody to know, stems from a unique life experience that I had um, right after COVID hit. Right, I was still working in manufacturing, and we were an essential business. We were doing things, and I don't know if you remember the moment because I don't know exactly how old you were, but there was a moment in time where everybody took COVID extremely seriously. Right, it was we were. Were you in
Yeah.
college at the time? Give me a.
Yeah. So I
All
was
right,
I
all
was a
right,
sophomore in college when
okay.
that. Yeah.
Um, we were people were spooked, shook up. We really thought we had a mega problem on our hands, and I think to a degree we did. Right, we came out of it okay, but um, right after things shut down, um, I was still, very happy to drink more than people knew, to smoke a tobacco pipe, to smoke weed. I was coping with a lot of stress at the time. And one Sunday evening, had kind of, gotten into that relaxed mode and went up to take a shower. And my wife heard a very loud thump and she knew instantly what it was. I had collapsed. I went into cardiac arrest, and my wife knew what to do. And to keep the story reasonably short, I ended up with a couple cracked ribs from the act of CPR, defibrillated, which I didn't remember. My children saw their dad be taken out of the house, unconscious on a stretcher. I was as close as you'd ever really want to get to being done. And the person I was at that time was starting this entrepreneurial journey. I had already put a lot of things in motion, but I hadn't made the personal changes. I hadn't made the deep down changes that needed to happen at a heart and soul level of who I was yet. And um, as a result of that event, I had a defibrillator implanted. And again, I didn't quite shift and change enough. And so later that year, 2020, the defibrillator fired, right? It saved me from I call it final shock polarity. There's a report that I got from the event. The defibrillator fired, saved my life. Um, and from that point forward, I relived the experience and I relived the what it was like through my children's eyes, through my wife's eyes, and it just changed me. It was slow. I'm embarrassed to say how slow I was to react the way I should react. And so I learned some things about myself through that experience. And I learned some things about how quickly it can go away. And so the lesson that I'm teaching through shop class is to know how fragile life can be and how important. I like to think about it in terms of, to use modern language. You a fan of the Marvel universe,
Yeah.
superheroes,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I talk about the superpower of knowing who you are, the superpower of being true to yourself and living in this space where your goal is the ultimate game to conquer who you are. And when I say conquer, I mean be honest with yourself and express the very best of you. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's very, very simple. And the key to that, I believe, is faith. Faith is the superpower unlock. And I grew up, I'm a Catholic kid. I'm still a practicing Catholic at this moment in time. My wife and we love the tradition, but I don't bludgeon people with the need to be Catholic. I don't bludgeon people with the need to follow any particular religion. What I talk about is the need for faith in the universe, God, the Holy Spirit. Like there's a lot of different names for it. And I've really, through my experience, figured out that that thing, that thing that's bigger than me, the universe, God, is having faith in that, and in also faith in humanity, faith in the future is it's a powerful unlock. It's the thing that gives me the ability to be my best self. It's the thing that gives me the ability to push through adversity and push through and the discipline and do the things that unleash the best version of me. So that's the one thing. If I could only tell one story and only relay one thing, I would want to talk about faith as the superpower unlock. And I appreciate you. We've talked now for quite a while. I don't know how long we've been going. And I feel like if you don't know me, if we don't have an opportunity to talk about all the other things, like if I just come at you with that story of faith, I don't know if it's going to land. I don't know if that's going to be helpful. But now that we've gotten to know each other and we've spent some time together, I think it's the most important story in my whole existence. And so having faith and doing something now, because if you truly know, if you truly have the lock, the key in the lock, and you turn it and you get that combination that's right for you, because it's faith opens up a unique situation for each and every one of us. It's not the same. That's why I think in some ways people have been turned off by religious dogma, because it's cookie cutter for them. I don't. We're moving into sacred ground here, but I want to be very respectful and careful. I want people to understand what I'm saying when I talk about faith. It unlocks something that is unique to you, your relationship with higher forces, if you will. I'm a big fan of a book called The Tools. I'll give that a shout out. Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels wrote a book that goes into great detail, and it almost like it helped me gain a more modern scientific perspective on our relationship with our spiritual roots. Human beings have had a spiritual tradition for a very, very long time. Depending on who you ask, it could be anywhere from 6,000 years to millions of years. But the point is, have faith, find a way to bring faith into your life, unlock that superpower and become the best version of yourself, and do it now. It's urgent.
Yeah, I can.
Don't
Yeah,
wait around, right? Now, you've heard me say, that I think young people, what they should do coming out of school and take their time and all, and that's true, right? I'm not trying to create a crisis for anybody, but if you've got something on your heart, once you've kind of figured out the thing that's pulling you forward and that's pushing you from behind all at the same time, you get into this flow of knowing where you belong. Get after it. Get in there and do it. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely. It's
that's
huge. I think a lot of times when those situations happen of people kind of going through life aimlessly, making decisions that aren't the best for themselves, is a lack of faith, a lack of understanding that there are things that are much greater, much bigger than yourself. And when you have that perspective on life of, it doesn't matter if I wake up tomorrow, it doesn't matter if, who
Ooh,
cares?
yeah.
When you have no faith of, faith in your own existence, faith in, living for a greater purpose than yourself,
Thank you. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
you tend to make bad decisions because you tend to think, what's the point of all of it?
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important thing that you brought up, and I thank you for that. That's a,
Thank you. Yeah, I love your perspective. Yeah, have faith in your need to exist. That's a great. I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
You're welcome,
Guys,
Ben.
this has been episode 2. Hope to have you again on sometime in the near future. It's been an awesome time. This has probably been a very, very interesting and very unique kind of perspective on business, on finances too, and we kind of touched on a little bit. Maybe we'll get into a little bit more in a future episode. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
You're
And
welcome, Ben. I appreciate you.
absolutely, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please follow us on Instagram at Black Stag Industries. Take a listen on wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And as always, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Black Stag Industries. We thank you, and we'll see you next time.